Throughout Counter-Strike's history, esports has been one of the main selling points of the game, always drawing in millions of viewers. The production, the atmosphere, the overall hype is truly unmatched. And if you have ever watched CS esports, you will know that a live clutch is one of the most special things ever. Which got me thinking, what is the best clutch in Counter-Strike's history? Now, there are a few factors that I'd like to mention because there are thousands of clutches to choose from, but I truly think context is what differentiates a good clutch from a great clutch. For example, one of my favorite clutches as of recently was Skulls' 1v4 against FaZe Clan. It has everything that makes a perfect clutch: insanely clean headshots, super flashy, and most importantly, it saves his team from elimination. But at the end of the day, FaZe Clan still won that match, which makes the clutch a little less significant. Whereas if Furia won the series off the back of that clutch, it would have made it a historical clutch. Also, just for clarification, a clutch in my eyes is when a player wins a 1vx situation, so although plays like Rops's Inferno quad kill were incredibly important, I don't consider it a clutch because some of his teammates were still alive. So with that in mind, these are my contenders for the best clutches throughout all of Counter-Strike. One of the most infamous clutches is Cadian's 1v4 against Gambit to win Pro League, and it is infamous for a reason. One of the most ridiculous clutches in the whole entire game, there is no doubt about that. But in terms of importance, it wasn't that important because Heroic was already at match point with the scoreline being 15-6 in their favor. Not to mention that this round was an eco, so even if Cadian didn't win, they would have still had a full buy going into the next round. And I mean, they would have also had 8 more chances to win Pro League regardless of the clutch. With all that being said though, I'm not trying to downplay this clutch because in terms of skill and flashiness, there are very few clutches that even come close to this one. We kind of run into the same issue with ZywOo's P250 clutch against Na'Vi at IEM Beijing, because again, it is so clean, literally some of the best shots I've ever witnessed. But I can only help but wish it was in a more important scenario. Yes, pistol round is important, and you could definitely argue that without this round, Vitality wouldn't have got the momentum they needed to win the map. But having the hindsight that we do now and seeing that this map was kind of a stomp from Vitality, it makes the clutch feel a little bit less special. But considering it was the first round of the map and could have swung momentum into Navi's favor, I personally think it's a little better than Cadian's 1v4. However, both are still incredible, and I really wish both of these happened on LAN because just imagine the crowd reactions. Speaking of LAN, the 2017 E-League Major has one of the most underrated clutches in Counter-Strike's history with Xyp9x's 1v3 in Grand Finals versus Virtus Pro. I will admit that this clutch is nowhere near as flashy as the others, but when you break down every aspect of it, you will realize why it's so impressive. First and foremost, this was a Grand Final of a Major, which already makes it that much better. But even more importantly was the scoreline. You see, Virtus Pro were already up by one map, and the final score of this map ended up being 16-14 in the favor of Astralis, meaning that if Xyp9x didn't clutch that round, they would have been forced into overtime at the very least, which could have denied Astralis one of their 4 major wins throughout CSGO. Plus, the man did it on 1 HP, so you just gotta give credit where it's due. Probably one of the most iconic clutches is the Snax 1v4 against Na'Vi at ESL New York in 2016. Also one of the most satisfying clutches, as the USP one-taps never get old. But once again, the fact that the scoreline was already so dominant definitely subtracts some points from the clutch, and it doesn't help that Na'Vi ended up winning this match anyways. So now we have this problem of clutches that are super important separated from the less important flashy clutches. So to be considered the best of the best, we need to find a clutch that has a combination of both of those elements. And I mean, could I really make this video without mentioning Donk? It's undeniable that his 1v5 against Heroic was incredible. The mechanical skill that was displayed made it so special, but it wasn't only flashiness that made it special. The stakes were also incredibly high because Heroic was on match point, and if Donk hadn't won that clutch, they would have won the map. Which means we finally have a combination of the 2 major clutch factors. Well, almost, because even though Donk did keep Spirit alive for one more round, Heroic still ended up winning the map in the end, so in the moment the clutch was important, but overall it really wasn't. Although they did win the whole entire major, if that counts for something, but in terms of clutches, I think we can still do a little bit better. This video is sponsored by skinvault.gg, which is the best trading site that makes upgrading your skins as easy as possible. Literally all you have to do is sign into your Steam account, add your trade link, and then select all the skins you don't want anymore to get a brand new one from their huge catalog of skins. They also offer an instant selling feature for people who want a quick, easy, and safe way to cash out their inventories with the lowest possible fees on the whole entire market. So make sure to use code nilloc to receive a free $10 bonus on your first trade, as well as a 35% deposit bonus. Skinvault is unironically the best. Which is exactly where Refresh's 1v5 at ESL Pro League comes into play. You see, unlike the other clutches, this is a legitimate do or die moment. If Refresh didn't win this clutch, his team would have been eliminated plain and simple. So it definitely has the importance factor, and it has the flashiness to go along with it. We have 5 perfect headshots, amazing game IQ to isolate 5 1v1s on a stacked bomb site, and liquid choking. It's truly a masterpiece. But there's still one thing that's holding it back, and that's the fact that it happened in a quarterfinal, which means although they won the match, they still had a long way to go to actually win the tournament. And if you were wondering, they didn't. In fact, Heroic placed 4th overall. But there is one clutch that encapsulates everything that makes a good clutch, and that happened at the 2016 DreamHack Open. Virtus.pro were facing off against Dignitas in the semifinals, where Neo made one of the most important clutches of his whole entire career. Funnily enough, the scoreline was 15-13 in favor of Virtus.pro, and Dignitas was on an eco, so the round started off looking like an inevitable win for VP. However, Dignitas pushed Playground and caught them off guard, leaving Neo in a 1v5, which of course he clutches, which was so important as it not only won them the match and secured them a spot in the grand finals, but since they ended up winning in the grand finals, without Neo's clutch, there is a world where Virtus.pro doesn't win the DreamHack Open, which is exactly why I think this is the best clutch in Counter-Strike history. Making this video has made me realize just how many incredible clutches there have been in Counter-Strike esports that there will never be a definitive best clutch. In fact, my own opinion changed multiple times while thinking about this, and at the end of the day, it truly just comes down to your opinion. So with that being said, let me know what you think is the best clutch in Counter-Strike.